Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us for today's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin. Before we get to our guest speaker, of course, just a couple updates I'd like to share with you. Please make sure to visit our AARP Wisconsin page to view all the upcoming virtual events, and you can register right online. Secondly is, of course, our Community Connections program. This launched a few months ago. When you visit the website, you can look at some volunteer opportunities in your neighborhood. So this would be to help one of your neighbors, could be grocery shopping or doing yard work. But also you can sign up for the AARP Friendly Voice program. This is just a friendly voice that can call you every day, could call you weekly, but it's one of our trained volunteers that are here for you, especially during this epidemic. And all of this is free. You could be any age and you do not need to be an AARP member. Also, August 17th is our due date for Cycle 4 of the Small Dollar Big Impact Grant. If you know of an organization, a municipality, a neighborhood that maybe has a good idea that could improve and impact your community, you could follow the link below, and there is a short application that you can apply for, and winners will be announced towards the end of the month. And also later in the program, towards the end, I will be announcing the second winner of the Small Dollar Big Impact Grant for Cycle 3. So next, I would love to get to our guest today, which is Anne Katz. She is the Executive Director of Arts Wisconsin. Good morning, Anne. How are you?
Good morning, Amber.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Anything to do with the arts community and AARP Livable Community, we're excited to have you talk a little bit more about that. But some folks might not know what Arts Wisconsin is. If you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about the organization.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Always happy to talk about the arts and about communities around the state. Arts Wisconsin is the state's community cultural development organization. That means that we are all about promoting and helping the arts thrive in every corner of Wisconsin. We know that the arts are part of all of us, whether we call ourselves an artist or not. Everyone has some kind of creativity in them, and that in the 21st century, and especially at this very crazy whatever moment in time, creativity is a resource that reflects and assists with economic growth, education for the 21st century, vibrant and livable communities, and bringing people together, engaged residents. So we're a service organization first and foremost. We do conferences and workshops. I do a lot of presentations like this. I'm getting better at doing them on Zoom. And we have a lot of research. We do a lot of planning, and especially about community livability and vitality. That is kind of our big theme now, because everyone wants to live in a place that is that benefits them and their children, and is a good place to live, work, and play. So we work around. I live in Madison, but we work around the state. I've pretty much been everywhere in Wisconsin, and I miss that traveling, but I look forward to getting back to it. And I am a huge fan of Wisconsin because I see the creativity at work. And again, at this moment in time, right now, it's never been more important. So and the website has been listed on the screen, so you can go to artswisconsin.org and learn more.
Absolutely. If you have not heard of Arts Wisconsin, definitely check out their website. Anne, as the executive director, has just done really great things around the state of Wisconsin. So just once again, we're really happy to have you here, Anne. So what's happening with the arts sector in Wisconsin at this historical moment in time?
Oh, how much time do I have? Lots. As I said, the amazing thing, not surprising, but amazing, is that people are really trying to figure out how to get through the day, how to get through the week. And that means that the creativity out there is astounding. And I will say it's not only with the creative sector, it's pretty much everyone is trying to figure all of that out. But creative organizations and creative workers, because there are not only hundreds and thousands of arts businesses in this state, but there are many thousands of people who work in some kind of creative industry. And so many of those people are independent workers. And so they're really trying to figure out how to keep all of that going. So there's a lot of stuff going on online. People are experimenting with physically distant performances, concerts. People are trying choirs online. So all of that creativity is amazing. I will say that before the pandemic, in fact, this information came out just before things started to shut down. The creative industry, the sector that employs people and businesses are involved, was defined in terms of economic impact by the U.S. Department of Commerce as having a $10.1 billion impact. So billion with a B. And they also said that there were over 96,000 jobs in the state. Now that's more jobs than the beer, biotech, and paper-making industries. So those are great numbers, and we will get back to that kind of robust energy. And all of that means, again, that there are creative businesses and creative communities and creative people working to keep their communities livable and have everyone benefit. I'll just say briefly that now that the pandemic is in place, doesn't seem to be going away, and that we know that the shutdowns will continue. And I should also add that even when we have a vaccine, which hopefully will be sooner rather than later, people are going to take a while to go back out into public, to stand next to other people at a festival, or to sit near each other in an indoor concert hall. So the numbers in terms of negative economic impact are pretty drastic. And the Wisconsin Policy Forum just came out with a report about that we're reaching crisis proportions. And so we're trying to juggle all of that and help people figure things out. So I'm going to stick with creativity is everywhere, and we want to make sure that it survives and thrives into the future.
Absolutely. And thinking about the epidemic and a lot of the creative entrepreneurs, what are ways that the community could support those type of entrepreneurs?
Well, a lot of people that had retail spaces, or even did not have retail spaces, but had an Etsy site or some kind of online presence already, those people have really ramped up their online presence. So, handmade, homegrown, authentic, unique. There are people making beautiful things and useful objects around the state. So if you have an artist that you like, go to their website and help them out by purchasing something. There have been some things like physically distant art fairs going on, anything that people can do to help out a business person, because of course people that make their living in the arts are involved in business just like everybody else. And so paying attention to the people that who are creative in that way, and none of us have a lot of extra money these days, but making sure that we focus on local and community. So from the ground up, if there's someone in your community who is a working artist, look at their work and see if you can purchase something from them.
Yeah, that's
one of the ways.
Correct. And, and I agree, I live in Milwaukee, but there's so many creative folks out there. I say I'm the least creative person, but knowing that I can, support them during this time is definitely something I'll look into. So, Anne, when you think about, livable communities, why are the arts so important to the livable communities, both big and small?
Well, I sent a graphic about this, and I don't know if it's going to be shown. There it is. Look at that. So what makes a great place? I just said that people want to live, work, and play in a place where they feel comfortable and welcomed. Their kids, their families have access to activities that they can be engaged in. They want to make sure that there are ways for them to meet their friends and neighbors on the street or in a live setting. And everybody wants that, and everybody deserves that. And so the arts are always part of that. Humans have been expressing themselves creatively since the beginning of time, right? You can't stop that.
Yep.
And so people want to go to a sculpture park. They want to watch a kid's show at the library. They want to go to a festival outdoors. I live in near the Capitol in Madison, and we've got a plethora. Usually, we have a plethora of outdoor music festivals that go on very close to our house. In the summer, we ride our bikes over there. We see our neighbors. Everybody wants that, and and the kids can come too. So that creative expression and the arts bringing people together, that's kind of at the heart of a livable community, where people can be creative in their own homes, and they can go out into their communities and have access to creative experiences. And so I will give a few examples, but I could go on about the big cities and small towns that have those kinds of places and those opportunities. And that's one of the things that really makes Wisconsin great and makes our communities livable.
Absolutely. So today I am chatting with Anne Katz, who's the Executive Director of Arts Wisconsin. If you have any questions for Anne, if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you can post them, and our producer will get to them very shortly. So, Anne, you kind of alluded to the fact, there's communities both big and small. Could you give a couple examples in Wisconsin that kind of stick out to you as being very creative that we should look into?
Oh, I'm gonna miss somebody, and someone's gonna say, "Why didn't you mention my community?" Yeah. Well, so for example, Kenosha and Racine, harbor communities that have done a lot in the last X number of years to improve their lakefronts. So there are the museums that are on the lake in Kenosha. There are bike paths all over the place in terms of lakefront access. People, you can walk, you can bike. So a place like Kenosha, Racine, or really all the way up Lake Michigan, have those kinds of the access to the lakefront, and they've made those spaces beautiful. They've made those spaces accessible. In fact, speaking of the other lake, Lake Superior, I know that Madeline Island is actually working on redoing their ferry dock, and they're including a public art project as part of that, so that when people get off the ferry, when they visit Madeline Island, they can feel welcomed. It's not just a sea of concrete, but it's also an artistic and interesting place to look out at the beautiful water. There are places like, again, I'm going to the water on the other side of the state. La Crosse has the Mississippi River, which is their main asset, and so they've got sculpture along the river. They've got an art center that's along the river. They have parks with artwork along the river and in the community. Mineral Point is well known as an artistic place. There are a lot of small businesses, small creative businesses, restored old buildings, art galleries, performance spaces like the Mineral Point Opera House. If you go into a downtown and there's an art center, there are shops with interesting and unique things to buy. There are restaurants making creative food because, of course, local food, local art, it's all connected. So Mineral Point, Cedarburg, those are examples of places that have really built this is a bad word to use, but brand. They really are known as creative places. So those are some of our small towns. Eau Claire also has done a lot to revitalize their waterfront in the last, their riverfront in the last few years. Now they have the Pablo Center, which is a major performing arts center on the riverfront. There are things like the Stevens Point Sculpture Park, which is not on the water, but it is in one of the beautiful parks in Stevens Point, and it's a collection. It's a beautiful park. You walk in the woods. There's sculpture all over the place. That's an example of a proactive effort that has helped to draw attention to Stevens Point and makes it, helps make it a desirable and livable place to live. Again, if you go to the Beer Line Trail in Milwaukee, that's one of the old railroad trails in the old industrial part of Milwaukee that is now a bike and walking trail, and it's also a place where a lot of art has happened. There's artwork along the Beer Line Trail. There have been art performances. I know they've used shipping containers to do performances. I mean, again, this is when we could go out, and this is when we will be able to go out again. But many places in Wisconsin have been focusing in the last few years on public art, on bike paths, on redoing their lakefront or riverfront, whatever they have, in an effort to make communities livable. And so those kinds of public spaces are critical to the health and well-being of the community, because they're spaces where everybody can go. Everybody can enjoy it. You don't have to pay anything. You don't, you can bring your family, you can meet your friends. And so all of those show great creativity and amazing, I think, ingenuity, because they are deliberately, communities are really deliberately focusing on what is going to make our community livable for all. And so, I've rattled off a few examples, but there are many, many more.
And say there's a creative mind that is either watching us live or they will watch the replay, and let's say they live in a city or a town that has green space, and maybe they're like, wow, I have this really great idea maybe to activate this space, or what would be some steps that you would recommend to them? Like, who could they talk to see what maybe they can do with that space?
Well, you start with manageable bites. I think I'll say that. Most projects that happen start because somebody or some group has this idea. It's like, hey, we should do something with this riverfront. Let's do something. What can we do? And so, as Margaret Mead said, never doubt the power of one person to change the world. And they get a few more, if I could give the recommendations, get a group of people together. We have this green space. What could we do with this space? Okay, we could turn it into a sculpture park. We could turn it into a creative playground. We could do something where people can access it. You write up a brief description. You bring it to you start talking to your neighbors and the decision makers about this great idea. And then you keep pushing it. I'm not being negative when I say that if these things were easy, then everybody would do them.
Correct.
It takes relationships. It takes community. It takes persistence. It takes the ability to think, okay, they said no, but how do I get them to say yes? And, that's what you say to your kids. Well, that didn't work the first time, honey. Try it again. That's what makes things happen. And I could give you many examples of and the ones I just said and many more, of places where people had a great idea. They hit walls, they went over or under the walls, they figured out where to find the money. Nobody has any money when you start. Correct. And you're never going to have enough money. But that's where the creativity comes in. If a person or a group of people truly believes that a project is worth doing, they develop the political will and the community engagement to make that happen. And so, again, starting small.
Right, and this is a perfect example. If you do have an idea, small dollar, big impact grants are due August 17th. Proposals, and the grant is up to $1,000 for an idea. So one of the most recent ones that we awarded was for the Milwaukee East Side bid. The bid saw it's a parking lot. It's not used as much. And they said, well, what if we get picnic tables, have artists paint them, activate the space in a very, physically distant manner, and then, activating a space. And we know on the east side, there's maybe not as much green space where people can kind of sit and conversate. And then at the end, there will be auctioning them off to help support the mural that they're going to be painting in Black Alley. So once again, just thinking, there's, I always say creative minds are unlike any minds I have ever talked to before, because they're always thinking of how something can be better, streamlined, faster, and bringing beauty to the community. And Anne, I liked what you were saying about, like, for instance, Stevens Point, and the Beer Line Trail here in Milwaukee, is when you're activating and when you're doing something creative, it does then become a destination then
Oh
that
yeah,
people are going
absolutely.
to travel to, of, hey, I'm an hour away from Stevens Point, but I really heard amazing things about this sculpture or about what they're doing to one of their parks. I'm going to drive. And so I feel like it's a really great way to also bring new people and highlight the community and city that you're in.
Right. And, there are things like Sculpture Milwaukee along Wisconsin Avenue that is, again, the same mindset. It's a destination. Places like Shawano County and Marquette County have mural tours. So there are barns and other public spaces that have quilt murals on them. And the Chamber of Commerce has a map. So you can drive around beautiful Shawano County or Marquette County or other places where you can look at these murals, and they're made by local artists. And so, anything is possible. Again, anything is possible. All of these, it doesn't take, again, as I said, there's never going to be quite enough money or as much as you think. But despite that, I'm always impressed by what people are able to do, and then keep going, because of course you establish some kind of livable activity, and you have to make sure that everybody gets to participate and it keeps going. But yes, it happens everywhere.
Absolutely. And then, Anne, if somebody, the more that we're talking, some, additional cities and communities are popping up of creative and innovative things that they've done, how would somebody know about what's going on in a community or city maybe they never even heard of, that they should go there because there's something creative going on? How would somebody look that up?
Well,
and it might be difficult, and it might be a website that doesn't even exist. But
well, we can certainly always use more promotion, but you can certainly get in touch with me, artswisconsin.org, and I'm happy to make recommendations. The Wisconsin Department of Tourism has been doing a huge amount, especially in the last, I'd say, 10 years, with cultural tourism. That is a major part of our very important tourism economy. And we've got wonderful arts experiences, sculpture tours, studio art tours, performances all over the state. And so travelwisconsin.com would be a good place, would definitely be a good place to go. Also, chambers of commerce, local CVBs. I'd say that the people that promote a region or a community are very aware that the arts are part of that mix, whether you're living there or visiting. And so any website that is a chamber or a CVB is going to, or a general media website. A lot of places have just informational websites. Check Facebook and check those websites to say, what's going on in this community. But the arts are absolutely a part of the mix in attracting people to community, in getting them to live there, no matter the size. And so, I'd say, look at the tourism websites, look at the how to live in this community kind of websites. Actually, it seems like in the last few months, especially, there are all these local and regional Facebook sites or Facebook groups popping up.
Sure.
The Mineral Point Network, the La Crosse Network, whatever. And so, those are out there to make recommendations, to ask people who live there, ask them questions. And so you have to search around the internet, but it's out there.
Okay. If you're a detective, they will find a way to get that information.
just Google it and you'll find it.
Absolutely. And coming up on our final question, so what is needed to keep things moving forward to avoid a catastrophe?
I hate to use the word catastrophe, but
yeah.
Well, in general, we now know that we're all in this for the long haul, right? And so we've been working hard to advocate with our federal officials about the next round of relief packages, because not only in the arts sector, but millions of people have lost their jobs and are getting some kind of unemployment. A lot of people have lost their health insurance. Businesses are wanting to make sure that they stay alive until they can open more fully. And so I'd say definitely let your elected officials know that you're concerned about jobs and businesses in this state. And again, the creative sector, because it's been hit early and it's going to be the last to open, is definitely one of those. Again, check out what's online, so that you can support independent artists and performers, that you can support your favorite local arts organization. You can volunteer even in this. Sorry, a motorcycle just went by. Even in a world where we can't connect to each other. You can still volunteer in ways. If you have some kind of web expertise, you can help a local arts business with their website, or a local performer. So figure out what you can do. The one other thing I have to say, because we're in election season, is vote. If you're a citizen of this country, it's every citizen's right and duty to vote. And so, no matter what your political party is, we want to make sure that people vote in November.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because AARP Wisconsin will be having some virtual offerings related to absentee voting. So thank you so much, Anne, for that. And Anne, thank you so much for being with us today. I definitely hope the folks that watched us live and who are going to watch in the replay see how, arts and livable community really has intertwined together, and that you can activate a space or look at space maybe in your community a little bit differently. So thank you so much, Anne, for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Amber. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes. And before we go, there are two other updates. So I would like to announce the winner of the Cycle 3 Small Dollar Big Impact Grant Award, which is on Broadway, which is for an Insta mural project, and this is up in Green Bay. So Anne was just talking about communities and arts, and this is perfect. So definitely check them out on their Facebook page. And then join us next Thursday for our next two guests. And then effective next Thursday going forward, we will have our new time. So instead of 11 a.m. Central Time, we will now be moving our show, which you can watch on Facebook or YouTube, until noon Central Time. So please note that time change. Next week's guest will be celebrating National Black Business Month. I will be talking with Felicia Brown, who is with our AARP National Office, and also Deshay Agee, who is the Executive Director of the Historic King BID, which is Business Improvement District out of the city of Milwaukee. We're excited to have them both. If you have any questions, we'd love to take them live on the air. And thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. Make sure to share this video or tag your friend on it if they are interested in the arts and livable community. So thank you so much for joining us today, and be safe.